you know?
Yeah, that's it. And I have black shorts, so like I'm super monochrome. So when I put on the O's hat, it gave me a little color.
Oh, real talk, real
The
talk.
ooze, the ooze.
Um, all right, we're ready to rock.
Ready to rock.
I wanna rock.
Rock.
I still don't know if we sing it, if we owe rights on anything. All right,
Yeah, but like, do we have lawyers watching this show that are like, bang, that's it,
bro, the lawyers are out there always.
Charlie Fiction.
Money. We've got Soccer Wise live here on a Thursday. Or whenever you're listening, wherever you're getting your podcast. I am David Goss. He is Tom Hoger. Tom, you've been working so hard to close out the transfer window. I can see the smoke rising from your keyboard. You have been surprisingly in high spirits over the last 24 hours.
That is a perfect way to put it. I can't even push back on that. Yeah, it's been manageable. Maybe it's just getting used to just this being like this all the time. I was looking at my phone yesterday. I think I had like 33 phone calls, and you can't even count the text or like looking at Twitter and stuff. So, yeah, I guess there's only one time where I tried to pick up my phone when somebody was calling me, and I was like, "Let me grab my AirPods real quick," and I looked back at my phone, and somebody else was calling me, and I was like, did I just have a mirage on who that was? And then I got off the phone and saw that like apparently if two people call you essentially at the same time, one just gets elbowed out of the way. And I was like, all right, thank God I'm not going crazy.
Sounds like my new excuse. Anytime I don't pick up someone's phone call and don't call
Yeah.
them back, be like, oh, apparently two people were calling me and you've gotten elbowed out of the way.
Yeah, another good anecdote from yesterday. I called the sporting director and he like I guess his wife was nearby and he goes like, Mike, you've never met my wife. She knows who you are. Like when I was like, oh, it's Tom calling me. So
Yeah.
that's how much I'm bothering that poor guy that his loved ones are like, oh, is that who's calling you again?
It is not shocking. I would assume you spend more time on the phone with some of these people than I spend with people I actually know and like. So that doesn't surprise me in any way.
It depends where the stories are. It's funny, like going, like looking back, like at some teams and some sources where like things are happening, and it feels like you're talking to them all the time, and then it's like their roster set, and it's like you check in a few times here and there, and it's like, oh man, like I was joking with somebody today about like Marco Royce finally got announced, and I was like, I feel like I want to text you and ask for an update just for old time's sake, because I don't know what else to do with my hands. It just feels normal for me to ask you for a Marco Royce update, even though that there's no more updates to be had. I just felt like this was a warm blanket of familiarity and comfort.
It Marco Royce's quote saying after Dortmund it was the only place I wanted to go, but taking 2 months to get there was like flex. It's literally like having broken up 3 times and then at the wedding being like, we were always meant to be together.
No, so like to go like super inside the game. Like if I had
Bro,
to
we're
guess,
here.
like
We are on Soccer Wise on a
what's,
transfer window
what's
closed. We're inside the game.
so I don't want to be too reckless, but if I had to guess, right? Like so, Marco Royce being like, screw it, I can make some stuff up on the back end and sponsorships or whatever. I made enough money in my career. I want to be in LA, whatever, right? Do you know who loses out on the transaction to not go to Saudi Arabia? His agent. His agent would have gotten a big old percentage of a Saudi check. So like I don't know if that was part of the holdup. Like again, I know that the deal was took a while because they had to be super creative with everything they could do. But yeah, like it was funny that like it's been set for almost like a month more or less, and like people are like, no, there's nothing to be worried about. It's like then why hasn't he traveled? I don't understand.
We are going to do our winners and losers of the transfer window. It's going to be a way for us to hit all of the big stories. So feel free to jump into the chat if you're watching live. Tweet at us as well. We are now live on Twitter every single show. So feel free to jump in there as well and let us know, what you want us to talk about, what your thoughts are, any specific moves. And of course, we have heard that the U.S. men's national team has hired a new manager. His name is Mauricio Pochettino. We talked about this. So I went back. July 11th was the day that we did our post-Greg, here's our list of names. You poo-pooed most of the ones I said.
Yeah.
Why? Mauricio Pochettino wasn't one of them. You were pretty high on that one. So we've got the records for the first time ever to say that we are very high on this signing, and we will talk all about that. So feel free to plug the chat with your comments there as well.
I love the limited fake Tom Bogert. That was very good. And when you started that, I was like trying to remember. I was like, did I say like why would he like? I was afraid that he was going to be on the list of people I said, dude, there's no chance.
No, you
So,
didn't. It was Tuchel was a little bit like, I don't know that he fits. Will he play guys? Whatever. Pochettino, you like, I'd be super excited and probably one of the more realistic ones. Tom, you're so level headed. Yeah.
Vindicated.
I tried to get that one clipped out, didn't have the time to do it. So we'll just make a new clip.
Oh,
today.
that's cool. We didn't have time. We didn't have time for me sounding really smart, but we had time for me trying to say the word gargantuan.
Yeah, we
Shout
did
out
have time
Morgan.
for
That was a
Yeah.
very funny clip. I was dying when I saw that last night.
We have a lot of time for that one as we go along. So a lot to talk about, a lot to do, and then the Leagues Cup update because this weekend we will have the quarterfinals. So then we will know the semifinalists going forward. A little bit of preview for you there as well. But let me ask you this on the Marco Reus thing. It sounds like Charlotte is getting $400,000 in allocation money for his rights.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't that above the threshold
Yes.
of like if you can't sign him, we automatically get what 150?
So I think it's 50 is the auto, or but like if you make an offer to the player, you technically have to agree to terms.
Yeah.
And the reason why this one was such a sticking point is like Charlotte believed they had a real chance to sign the player,
Game, baby.
and
Tell
then
me I've got a chance.
and then accused the Galaxy of tampering, and of like all of a sudden now he only wants to go to Los Angeles after you guys talked to him without permission. And again, this is I stress that like
now
I
he's
don't-
heard of this city called L.A.
I stress that like I'm not reporting this as a fact. I'm just saying that was Charlotte's stance. I know that they were upset about that, and that's why they said, okay, if we're giving you his rights, one, normally in these deals, you only get compensated. The deal only happens if the player signs. It was like, one, whether you sign him or not, you have to give us some money. And two, if you do sign him, it has to be the most discovery claim, like the biggest discovery claim in league history. I think it's that. I think the biggest like player rights transaction was Paul Areola, but that was homegrown rights. So bottom line is that Charlotte felt that they were on strong standing ground to say we're no like 150 doesn't work. Like it has to be a significant fee.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it was an outlier to me. Didn't know why. This is why I do this show with you, and an opportunity to ask you. And Charlotte fans already flooding the chat. Did we already miss a chance to talk about Pep BL? What about Stangs? Where is all this money coming? When's it coming in? And all of that. So let's start with our winners and losers of the transfer window. Let's start positive, as we always do here. We'll start with our winners. Tom, you want to go first?
Yeah, so I think that's an easy segue. Again, I'm not listing these in like biggest winners, like we're just gonna do winners and losers. And because we were just talking about Charlotte, I'm gonna start with Charlotte. I think that they're a winner in this transfer window. I know the last few days doesn't totally seem like it, but if you take a step back, this team signed Tim Ream, Pep Biel, and they brought back Karol Swiderski. I'm long on the record making fun of the like a new signing joke, except in reality, like he wasn't here for half the season, and then it was just like, oh, he'll probably leave. He's probably not coming back. So again, like with Tim Ream, that's an elite level center back in his league. Pep Biel, he's not Miguel Marone, Giovanni Lo Celso, or Calvin Stangs. And guess what? Like at least two of those players were going to be viewed as a handful of the very best players in MLS. So yeah, he's not quite that level, and maybe he doesn't quite work out. But the fact that they got somebody who was just sold for like $8 million to Olympiacos, who's in his prime, who is ready to go, and they didn't have to commit future assets. So if he works out great, bang, you trigger the purchase option, he's your DP10. We're all settled, and then we see what's up next. If he doesn't work out, you get out of that deal immediately, and you try again in the winter. You try again for Lo Celso. You try again for Almiron, or whoever else that they want to go for. A player like Stangs in his prime, and a bit younger, a different profile, all of that. Like, they still have that flexibility for the winter while making the team significantly better this summer, and they got additions that they needed. Again, with Swiderski coming in, a couple of attackers, Ream adds to a position of strength, and now with a group like their core is Ream, Malanda, Abada, Swiderski, Biel, Kalina, Ashley Westwood, Vargas. Like that's a really solid core for me. They're not quite in the Columbus, Cincy, Miami range. If they signed Almiron, Stangs, or Lo Celso, I would have put them there. But that just because it wasn't an A+ doesn't mean that it wasn't a win.
They were, I believe, somewhere around the 17th, 18th best attack in Major League Soccer last year. They have now brought Swiderski back. They've unearthed Patrick Agyemang. They've added Abada and Pep Biel. So, like, it is a clear move in their biggest weakness to try and improve. That part I think is fair. It is hard coming out of the few weeks they've come out of to call them winners because I talk about process all the time. They had no process when they started in MLS. It was a huge reason why they struggled out the gates because it's like, we'll pull talent here, we'll pull talent here, we'll hire this manager, we'll fire this manager, we'll hire this guy. Yeah, that wasn't the guy, we'll hire this guy. And so the hope was you were coming to an end of that. And I don't feel that way right now, even if you want to say Stengs was an outlier in a ridiculous moment and they had the whole window right. We don't have a window where we can look and say Charlotte had clean business and like Charlotte are on the right pathway forward. I think the talent makes sense. And I do like the idea of not locking yourself into the player you scrambled for on the last 2 days of the window and saying like, no, let's go big. Let's sign him to a 4-year deal. It'll work out. Talent is talent. Who cares? If he can do it in the championship, he can do it in Salt Lake City. Like, you don't stick yourself in another one of those. But it does take a little bit of the shine off, not just because of the name, but just the way this whole thing has gone down for them. And it may not be their fault. Like, that's fine, and that's a fair reality. But I don't know that that changes the perception totally of them. But they are more competitive. And I think if you're a fan, you should be excited to watch this team get on the field over the next few weeks.
I'd push back at that. First, I'd say that their winter window, I think that was a really strong process. And, like, yeah, sure, like, Leo Bada coming in early March rather than early January. But, like, that deal wasn't available in January. And, like, at the end of the day, Leo Bada, I think it was a very good signing. Oh, and they signed Inan Toklamadi. I don't know if they've announced that yet or not, but that's done.
You have talked about this move
I know.
for 3 weeks.
And because, like, I was looking at the transaction pages because I was trying to be comprehensive in all of the signings, and I forgot to write that down because I don't think it had been announced. But anyway, so, like, I think in the winter, like, they brought in Jabril Diani, who I think was a good signing. They brought up a couple players from the second team, but more importantly, they got rid of a lot of deadwood in the winter. So I thought that was a really strong window. And again, I still think this one is. And we talk about process. Zoran Granada flew to London in the hopes of finalizing a deal for Gio Lo Celso. Like, that would have been incredible. And they were close on some stuff, but, like, the player wasn't going to say yes before the end of the European transfer window because he's going to leave Tottenham. And he didn't, and, like, business happens in Europe where over the last week, right, like, different options present themselves and prices go down and teams get either more desperate or stop holding to their sorry about that. Stop holding on to their players and saying, "Oh no, this is a $25 million player," and then in the last week it's okay, he's fine. He's an $8 million player. So Lo Celso, like, didn't want to commit when, like, what if Real Betis comes in at the end of the window? What if a Europa League team? Like, whatever, right? Like, you can tell yourself what if. So that didn't get done. Pivoted to Stengs. Stengs was all done. He failed a medical. Like, what are they supposed to do about that? And immediately we're in talks for Miguel Morón. So you talk about process, and Pep Biel, he's not somebody that, like, they were just, like, hitting up agents and being like, yo, do you got any players? Like, that's somebody they scattered out. He's been on the radar for a while. Like, I think that this shows a good process, because a bad process, they wouldn't have signed anybody, or they would have signed someone, I guess, even more random or less of a profile. So that's where I push back on the process here.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it's fair to say that it's gotten better. But in the winter, they got the Abada deal done. They brought Diani in, and that's it. Like, they haven't really progressed the roster otherwise, except for internal progression. Pep Biel, by the way, 27-year-old Spanish designated player. He's coming over on loan from Olympiacos. He spent last year split the first half of the year at Olympiacos, the second half at Augsburg in the Bundesliga. 0 starts at Augsburg, only 270 minutes, so mainly a substitute. And his prime run, his best point of his career so far, 2019 to 2022 at FC Copenhagen, which puts him in the same convo as Diogo Goncalves that RSL just signed. So, like, he is of a profile of a genuine DP signing in MLS, and they got it done pretty quickly late in the window, and he should help them immediately in this group. So I think it's fair to say, like, they are a better team today than they were a week ago, and then they were 4 months ago, and all of that going forward. And so there should be genuine excitement for this team, and I think the fans should be excited as well. We've already got a bunch of questions from Charlotte fans, because Charlotte fans are, like, super intense and really excited. And this is why Sir Minty approves of Tom, apparently, and the House of Bogart is what we're getting in the comments. as well. So a big winner there for you, a medium winner for me, but fine. It's okay. I don't mind. Do you have a second one lined up? Do you want to keep ripping them? Or you want me to
I have
go?
I have a quick one, and then I'll let you go.
Okay,
Winner.
wait, before you do that, let me tell everyone that if you want, we have salary cap tables and depth charts that you can get access to if you subscribe to our Patreon. We are updating them as the moves happen. So if you want to understand, okay, Pep Biel's in, how does this affect the rest of this team? That is there for you, and it's there for every single team. And we've got salary cap tables as well to understand money that's been moved out. Why would a Shaqiri get signed? Why would they buy him out? What would they do? For all things like that, as well as the money that players are still on and the length of their contracts as well. So you can get access to that if you subscribe to our Patreon. You also get access to our Discord where you can chat about all these things and talk during the games and transfers. And we have a feed that's just Tom's tweets. So if you don't want to be on Twitter, but you want to know when stuff's happening, you can get that. And then we've got, fake rumor section as well with some other Joe Schmoes that we'll throw in there every once in a while. So I just wanted to throw that out because to me, this depth chart and the cap table has been a godsend over the course of this week. And it will be once again in this show.
Yeah, this is going to be a different dismount off of that super serious point, which is awesome. I love those depth charts. I use them. Again, I'm updating them to try to reflect what we see. My next very quick winner, Inter Miami's team admin and their people team. They had one summer signing this year.
Nice.
One summer signing. Last year, it was
build a bunch
Messi,
of houses.
Busquets, Gomez, Alba, Farias, and Aviles.
Nice.
The team admin didn't have a ton to do this summer. I hope that he or she got some time off. Nobody had to build IKEA furniture. Nobody had to get some apartments or houses ready. Nobody needed to help anybody settle. There was just one player. I bet Martinez had a lot of help. Hey, what do you need? We're here for you. We're here for you. We're here for you. We're used to doing this for 8 players, and a couple of them the biggest stars in the world. So winner, Inter Miami's team admin and their people team.
But they didn't give him the opening speech, which is if you tackle someone from behind on a breakaway in MLS, it's a red card here.
That's not on the people team.
Else.
I'm sure the people team made him comfortable. I'm sure that they got him either a nice hotel or helped put together some nice furniture, which reminds me of one of Kaku when he was leaving the Red Bulls or trying to leave the Red Bulls. One of the things he said publicly about how upset he was is that the Red Bulls didn't put together his IKEA furniture, so they didn't care about me. They didn't make me feel at home. So that's where I'm always going to go with the IKEA furniture. That is just an incredible story that's living rent-free in my head forever.
Okay. That's a good one.
You seemed disappointed. That you saying that's a good one did not seem
No.
forthright. You can just be honest with me.
FC Cincinnati fans are asking us questions, and I'm like, well, they're not a winner exactly, maybe. Actually, they could be. I'm going to go next. I'm going to
Talk it out, guys.
Yeah, I'm going to put FC Cincinnati as a winner. We talked about the move at center back. And so for Cincy, the whole conversation right now is around center forward and like the replacement because they let Bupenza go and the potential to add there and make them better and strengthen and all of that stuff. But Awazium, I think, as we talked about a week or two ago, I think he's a stud. I think he's a legitimate upgrade on like the pieces they already had, let alone being able to fill in for a Miazga on the fly and keep this team churning. And then you bring in Joe Aquini in a space in which you've probably made your locker room better. You've brought in a guy who played in a similar system in this league already and will probably hit the ground running. You have not locked yourself into the next player like we just talked about with Charlotte FC, and he scored 10 goals last year on a worse team. Even if you say St. Louis won the West, Cincinnati won the East and won the Shield. So this is a better team. He is playing with Alucho Acosta, that is a better player. Orellano, a better player. There should be a ton of openings for him. He's not an elite center forward. He will not create chances a ton for himself outside of the press. He is not the best finisher in MLS, but he is an upgrade to a empty hole that wasn't Bupenza a week ago.
Yeah, that's fair. I think it was really important for them to get that deal over the line. I didn't know if they were going to get anything over the line. Like, I'm sure we'll talk about Atlanta at some point later. Like, Atlanta all day or the last 48 hours, they were working hard to get somebody over the line, and they didn't, right? Like, that happens. I know Cincinnati had many other targets. Gioacchini wasn't the grand prize at the end of the day, right? Like, but they still got something done. I thought that was pretty crucial for their window because I think we would have been sitting here hammering them right now. And that's not to say that, like, Gioacchini is, like, this huge difference. It's that they did get something done, and they were creative, and they got something done, as you say, that doesn't cost any future flexibility. Like, it was funny kind of looking at some of the reactions where like I think fans were happy at first, like super happy. Just any signing, any forward, a forward we know, a good forward, somebody who's proven that he can score goals in this league in this kind of system. Like St. Louis has the like the generalities, and now he's got a chance creator like Lucho Acosta and like in a better team, so he should be seamless. I also thought Corey Baird was going to be a seamless addition to this team, so it's never guaranteed, right? And then it was like Pat Brennan like reported that like technically he's occupying a DP spot right now. And some people are like, oh my god, like no, like never mind, this is stupid, such a bad deal. Like it doesn't matter. Like it's not like they were gonna go sign a free agent center forward, anyway. Right? Like yeah, so and like it's just like a salary cap mechanism, yeah. Right? Like it's accounting. It's not so like I think you take that away, and they brought in an MLS proven center forward. Again, not like crazy big time signing. They tried very hard for some other stuff, and it didn't happen. But at least they did get something over the line. So. I don't know how, like, again, Awaziem, I think is a really, really good signing. I love that. Like, that's, I think, the better move of the window, even if they needed a center forward really bad, too. But at the end of the day, they got the two things they needed, center back, center forward. And maybe it wasn't perfect. It didn't go quite according to plan, but they got it done. And they're still within the race at the top of the East, at the top of the league.
So Matthew Brew's question in the chat was, did we strike out on so many guys that it was this or nothing? What do you make of the fact that it ended up being Joe Aquini?
Again, like this wasn't plan A, probably wasn't plan B, C, or D, right? Like this was, I know for a fact that they had other targets and other attempts, and there was some stuff that they were working on. Again, we'll see kind of what comes out, but yes, like that was the case. And again, the fact that Gioacchini as not being the plan A, like that's still solid enough. Again, it would have been pretty catastrophic if they didn't get anything done, honestly. Like, if they had this team where you have Lucho Acosta, still like one of the very best players in the league, reigning MVP, like somebody's such a singular difference. It's like, reminds me of very different circumstances right now, but like with New England Revolution, whether or not that they're significantly better than they were at the beginning of the window, they have Carlos Hill in his prime. Yeah. Every single window, you have to try to get better. You have to. And so if Cincinnati were to have exited this window without bringing Gioacchini, it would have been a big disappointment because of, you have Lucho Acosta, you have this defensive foundation, you have everything else. Like, you need to be going for it every single window, every single year, because you never know when that window closes. You never know how quickly it goes from Shield to, we need to reload. Philadelphia Union, look at them. Like, we all thought they were going to be top 4, top 5, and they've been much better of late. But beginning of the season, we're like, oh my God, are they even going to make the playoffs? So you never know how quickly these things can go with 29 teams in the league. And when you have Lucho Acosta, when you have Miles Robinson, Miazga, obviously, before he got hurt, you have to go for it. And they went for it, and they got something done in the end. So yeah, I think that's positive.
FC Cincinnati are 5 points behind Inter Miami for the Supporters Shield right now. They're a point behind the Galaxy, but they have a game in hand on the Galaxy. August 24th, FC Cincinnati travels to Miami to restart play. They come home to play Montreal and Columbus. They then have back-to-back road games at Minnesota and Nashville, LAFC at home, and then they travel at NYC, home to Orlando, at Philly to close out. Which I told you, Cincinnati, Philly. That's a good one all the time, and it was a good one once again.
That's a great one.
In Leagues Cup. They're trying to make a run at another Shield. This club is too new and has had too many bad days to not care immensely about the Shield. They are better off on that road right now. I would not say they are favorites, but I think they have a decent chance to get over the line here.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to put it, because I think that Columbus and Miami are a slight step ahead of them now because they weren't able to get a DP9 in. And I've seen in the chat about the U22s for FC Cincinnati not coming in. Yeah, I understand the disappointment, but like signing a U22 initiative player, overwhelming majority is not somebody who's going to help your team in the next 6 months. So they could sign them in the winter, and then maybe by the end of the season, they're key players. Like it's not the regular for U22s to come in like Diego Gomez did, like Federico Redondo did. Yeah. It's more like, all right, these players are going to take a little while. Even again, Andres Gomez, who we've talked about plenty, he wasn't this player that's going to Rennes for 11 million when he first joined, and again, he ended up being a UTP. Yeah, right. Like so,
signing.
And Isaac Atanga in the past, and Barreal, he came good under Pat Noonan and Chris Albright in this regime. How long did that take?
Yeah.
So like, I'm not going to hang it on them that they didn't sign U22 initiatives. Again, it would have been nice. There are possibilities. Like, the Revs going out for Luca Langoni, they think he's going to be an impact player right now because they're spending just under $7 million on him, and he's 22. He's not 18. So there are ways to do that. But for the most part, U22 initiatives aren't for like, all right, loading up for a title run here. Like, we got to bring in the 19-year-old from Ecuador, you know? Like, and again, they could have helped, but it's not something that I think sinks their season.
And I think ideally Kevin Kelsey outplays Gioacchini and he doesn't play. Like, that option is still on the table.
Yeah.
You are not required to play him in any way. We have one question in the chat which says, is there any feeling that we're hurting ourselves when an MLS team brings someone back from Europe this quickly? I believe that's about Gioacchini. None of these teams care about that. Like, Nicholas Gioacchini's future and the USMNT future, that's not their job. The other thing I would say is playing is better than not playing. It doesn't really matter where it is. If he wasn't going to play at Como, then he wasn't going to get better over the next few months. And so he gets this opportunity to play. And this season ends, he comes back in the January transfer window. If he's in form, then he can get a chance to win his spot back there as well going forward. So that's it. Oh, yeah.
Quick loser, Nico Gioacchini off the field. I'm fond of Cincinnati, but Como is one of the most beautiful places in the world. It's tough, man. I don't know if I might have sat on the bench. I'm just going to hang out here. I'll go to training, and then I'll go home and live in Como.
I wanted to see, I couldn't remember. What's the name of the river that runs through Cincinnati? Is it the Cuyahoga, or do I just always make that up and yell that? It's the Ohio River. The Ohio River is not Lake Como, I guess. Yeah, I think that's fair.
Maybe in summer. I mean, people are saying that it's the Paris of the Midwest.
People are saying that, which Como isn't Paris, but it might even be
I'm
better.
saying it.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have another winner you want to go with?
Nah, I've just ripped through a few.
I just did Cincinnati.
But you started with, I don't know if they're a winner. I wouldn't say that they're a loser.
I got
don't
there.
even think
I
you
was
give
there.
All right, I'm going to go. We'll keep it in the family. Keep it in Ohio. Winner, Columbus Crew. In, DeJuan Jones, Dylan Chambos, AZ Jackson, Andres Herrera. Out, Aiden Morris, Will Sands, Marino Heinstrosa. The best part of their outgoing list is that it does not include Cucho Hernandez. And with the MLS transfer window closing, I cannot imagine they'd sanction a sale for Cucho Hernandez by the end of the window. Again, famous last words, but like at this point, I feel pretty safe in assuming that Cucho Hernandez is here for the rest of the season. So to bring in DeJuan Jones, a new starter, Dylan Chambos, and Sean Zawadzki has already internally helped replace Aiden Morris. That they've had the replacements, plus they got a little bit better with DeJuan Jones. They've added more to the attack with AZ Jackson. They've brought in an Argentine potential right wing back starter. I don't know if he will or won't, but they brought all these players in. They really only lost Aiden Morris, who is obviously very important to this team, but they're so deep, and they kept Cucho Hernandez. That's a big win for me.
Yeah, I think that's a safe one. They were the best team in the league. They got better over the course of this window, and they were in the right spot at the right time on some of these moves, where like they weren't pressed, they knew who they were, and then a DeJuan Jones shakes loose, and an AZ Jackson shakes loose. And they have belief in their process that they can make those players better, or those players can fit for them. I think with DeJuan Jones, not making him better. It's just like, no, it's a clean fit. He's already super talented, and he can be a part of that group. So I absolutely agree with you. I also think there's like some good energy that comes there of like, for DeJuan Jones, it's got to be awesome. Like, you've struggled. It's been a struggle for a year and a half, 2 years in your environment. You didn't know your future, which is always super worrying. You scored on your third touch with your new team that just won MLS Cup. You are hosting potentially all the way through to a Leagues Cup final. We haven't really seen that much of AZ Jackson yet, and that's not super shocking because it's not easy to get minutes in this team, but like Chambeau scores as well on his debut. So I think that feels like a safe one as well with Columbus. You want me to go next?
Do you have anything? I've got a whole list here. I came prepared. But yeah, you ready? You want me to go?
No, Tom, I'm
good.
But I did just do a crazy thing, and I minimized everything on my screen. No, I'm going to go Houston Dynamo. Is that as a winner?
Okay. I figured, but I was just making sure. You got to announce that we're winners and losers. Could have went either way. You could have had a new take, and I could have shredded you for it, but I'm not going to, because we agree.
I'm gonna name them a winner. Ezekiel Ponce obviously is the big part of this. Lawrence Anali as well.
He looks, by the way, Anali looks good, man. He looks good.
Yeah? You feel good about that?
I do. I didn't know what to expect when I saw him, and he kind of jumps off the screen. I was like, oh, wow. Like, this is a real guy that's going to help them right now.
I think that's fair. So for them to fill the center forward position and legitimately do so in a record-setting way for them, and then to also continue to add on the wings where it's like, now you're not reliant on Quinones coming back and hitting at a high level for his injuries. Aliu's already looked really good for them. They're rock solid in central midfield. They're rock solid across the back line. Another window where they keep everyone around in the Griffin Dorsey's and the Franco Escobars and all that, where you never really knew if people would come asking. Still strong in goal. This is a team that got better. They got better at a time when they should, because they are in a good window with Ache. And they got better in clear ways that we weren't sure the Houston Dynamo would do. Now, this is not Cucho, but like, you're bringing an in-prime center forward that you think fits your system as well. And again, if Sebas Ferreira outplays him or someone else outplays him, like, you don't have to play this player every single minute, but you've given yourself the option. And I think overall, Houston Dynamo, a really strong summer window.
Yeah, for me, they went for it. They had a strong team. They won the Open Cup last year. They're good again this year with potential to be better. And instead of saying, it's good enough, or I don't know if we can quite catch LAFC. Oh, Miami, the Columbus, they're so good. Now they said, like, we're signing a DP number 9. We're going to put up a club record fee. So well done to ownership for putting that together. Well done to the front office for having him ready to go so he could debut the first day he was eligible to play. All of that is great. We were talking in the Discord here. Shout out to the SoccerWise Discord. You can get into it on Patreon. Like, somebody brought up a good point about Austin. I think it works for Houston, that, like, we haven't talked much about their window because they did everything already.
Yeah.
Like, they signed Ponce, I think, like, weeks before the window. So we just haven't talked about him. Like, if they brought in a club record signing right now, like, it would lead the show just because it was new news. I really like what Houston did for going for it when they had a good team, and I'm always going to commend that.
You got another winner? Or you want to start going losers?
No, I was going to just mix in a loser because we haven't gone that way yet.
We need more losers.
I have a few here. I don't know which one to. I do. And it's not even like.
Rattle three off, and I'll pick one that
I've picked one. I'm gonna go with Sporting Kansas City. I just don't get it. I don't get what they're doing. I don't understand. What was the point? What is the point? Gosh, what is the point?
So this is a funny one with Sporting KC, which is, we did a show last week, I believe, where we were like, who are the teams you want to see the most make moves? And it was based off, who do we think is competitive and who has holes that they need to fill that they could to jump them up. The fact that we didn't even mention Sporting Kansas City in that conversation, because we came out of that and I was like, I probably should have said SKC. And then I was like, competitive for what? Like, I could understand the holes they need to fill, but they are 12th in the Western Conference right now. They got knocked out at the first knockout stage by a mile to Columbus in Leagues Cup play. Their reality is way different than it should have been. And it was 2 years ago and maybe even a year and a half ago. And we can talk about the second half run last year when healthy. No one wants to see them in the playoffs. Pulido and Eric Tommy and all this stuff. That's the same conversation we're having over and over again. They haven't gotten better. They don't fill the holes, the issues that they have. They are very weak to play against. The rest defense is one of the worst in MLS. 1v1 defending is still one of the worst in MLS. And like, yeah, if you had asked me if they went out and got a rangy, dominant center midfielder, they could change the reality. There was never even an inkling of that. And like, that's where SKC stands right now.
Yeah, I mean, like, this team, it's pretty middling at best. Like, what is the best case scenario of this? Like you said, I pushed back on the whole nobody wants to play this team in the playoffs. Brother, it's playoffs. We're all nobody's supposed to want to play anybody. They're supposed to be the best of the best. Like I hate that as a phrase, or like that's.
You know what? You don't want to see me in the playoffs.
Like the 8-9 game in MLS right now, it's the only time where it's like, you know what? I want to see that team. Hell, if you look at the Western Conference some years, it's like, I don't know about that. But like, yeah, like I think because that's the nice thing you say about a team when you don't have anything else to say. Like, again, just like looking at this team, maybe Joaquin Fernandez, like hopefully he's good. Like that'll change a lot if they get like an A- center back, like a above average to elite tier center back. That'd be great. Like. But I just don't think that they have enough going forward to really matter. I don't think that they have enough control to like. What do they do really well? What do they want to do really well? Like this is one of my favorite ways that you look at the game. Like that's one of the first things you come up with. Like what do they want to do? I don't see it.
Yeah, they don't have categories that they dominate the game. They play in the middle, and in MLS with a salary cap league where you have to choose your strengths and allow your weaknesses, having a strength you dominate can make you a lot better. There are some teams that can hit on talent acquisitions well enough to be like, we're just really solid and that's who we are. And that's okay. That's not the case with SKC right now. And some of that's injuries. Logan and Debe's been a big loss for them. Like, he came on really well, but they're playing Jake Davis in central midfield. So now they've taken a step back at the right back position and a step back at the center midfield position. No, it has been really tough. Their fans have been really frustrated, as we know. We heard the peter out sort of movement at the beginning of the year, and then they kind of got a sacrificial lamb in place of that one and moved a bunch of fake names around below. Peter Vermees to be like, look how everything's changing. We gave everyone titles, and then we fired them, and then gave them titles. There is control from the top down, and that part has not shifted at all, and it's another bad window for an SKC team. At the same time, by the way, that I think St. Louis is a winner, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Good.
And like, St. Louis's reality is not perfect. They fired their manager who helped them have a historic expansion year immediately. There is some chaos with that team, and I don't know that they are perfect, but damn did they play well in the second half against Club America. In that environment, they did so even without Teutschert, one of their new signings, going out with an injury and being unavailable. Lovin looks so much better with true runners in front of him who he knows can pick up that pass and attack. And so what you saw on the penalty kick they earned was like his hips are going to the right, the whole game's going to his right, and he cuts the ball back to Hartle coming in off the wing. Hartle's first touch is perfect, and the defender clatters into him because he doesn't know how to avoid a shot coming from a dangerous area. These are things where that wasn't clean a year ago. Like, that wasn't clean with the players that were in those spots over the course of time. I said it on Monday's show or Tuesday's show, I think. Simon Betcher's been a really good ad at the center forward position. He is a little cleaner in some spots than I think Adeniran was with this group. He also, I think, is on the same soccer brain as a few of these guys, where he wants to connect. You see him make lung-busting runs to pull defenders, like knowing he's not going to get the ball and still being there. I would like to see how the back line shakes out when it's Horn and Kessler and whoever's actually back there and where they play and where it all ends up. But overall, for St. Louis, again, this is another team that feels better today than they did a week, 2 weeks, and 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, and I think pretty significantly, too. And you could push back to say, like, yeah, well, they were very bad in the first half of the season. That's fair enough. They brought in, like, 5 new starters, right? Like, Henry Kessler in for Parker. So maybe that's, like, again, sideways or whatever you want to call it. Like, they lost a starter to bring in a starter. But, like, Cedric Teutschert, Marcel Hartle. I love the Marcel Hartle sign. I think that was one of the best signings of the window. Giannis Horn, like, I think that one went under the radar. If he's a difference maker at left back and somebody that could play left center back in the back three, if they needed to change it up or whatever happens, I just really, really like what they did. And it's probably too late for this year. Maybe it is. As I pull up the standings here, right? Like, they're 10 points below ninth place. It's probably too late for this year. But I'm glad that they weren't like, oh, screw it, we'll figure it out in the winter. Particularly because Lutz Pfannenstiel is on the record saying you get the best players in the summer. So, like, again, it's not like that they're ditching this season, but I think you have to be realistic to understand that it's unlikely that they'll come back. But, like, this team is significantly better than it was 2 months ago. And I think that's really good. Like, I think that these are all long-term signings. Like, the front, like you said, with how it impacted Edward Lovin. Like Durkin, Lovin, Hartle, Teutschert, Betcher or Klaus, and Vasilev, Thor, and, like, insert anyone who's going to be the 5th or 6th starter in that group. That's really strong for me. That's really, really strong. And a team, their style of being transition, high pressing, the team is the star, the press is the playmaker. Like, with all of those, like, maybe you don't need that, best 11 type guy or all-star type guy. Like, they have 6 really solid players moving forward. Like, I think that this team is really solid. And if this was the team from the beginning of the year, they would be significantly higher in the table than they are right now.
Yeah, they'd be a playoff team with this group, and they're probably on the road to doing it next year. You'd like to see a couple more ads, but, like, see what Kessler looks like in your system, and see if center back has to be one where you have to make a move. See if Durkin looks better with this group around him as well. So good work for St. Louis. I think you could tell in our Discord, we have a ton of St. Louis fans. Like, the feeling watching them play Club America, I think, was like genuine hope and excitement and enjoyment with the way they played that game. And if I'm a fan, get me back to that for the end of this year and end on a high. Basically the reverse of last year where you started on the high and then ride that out through.
That Club America game was like, are we that good? like that, like when Club America shredded them in the Leagues Cup, and then kind of like they didn't
4-0.
hit the same form.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a funny inflection point. I'll stick on the loser side. We just did another winner. We've been super positive, obviously. For me, loser of like FC Dallas. They didn't do much of anything, and I understand it. I don't even necessarily know what I was expecting them to do. I just keep on thinking that this team should be better than they are, and it just never happens.
Yeah.
Taking a roll of the dice on Juan for next to nothing, like that's cool. Signing Kafumana, but like Jose Mulatto is the only departure. If this team was this bad this season, they needed to have more departures. They needed to have more evolution. They still need to add a head coach if they don't keep Peter Luchin. I just don't think like we're talking about St. Louis, and a lot of the positives were, yeah, like maybe it doesn't change the fate of this year, but they're going to be better going into next year, and at least that they're trying to do something positive and they're trying to do things long term. Dallas just didn't do anything, and I don't think that they're in a position to do that.
And to your point, Dallas's top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players are under contract next year, not on options. So if you're talking about the team's not good enough, we want to clear salary cap to make moves. They didn't do that, and they are in a tough spot to try and accomplish that going forward. Eugene Ansa and Sebastian Ibiaga are the two highest paid players that are even on team options going forward. Igor Mendy's only on $550K, which is wild, and actually a pretty good signing for them.
Excellent deal.
Juan is off, like his deal is up, and that's why they went and brought him in. It also, again, Giovanni Jesus has 2 more guaranteed years left on his deal. And it clearly, for trading for Juan, you are acknowledging he will not play again this year. And
are you acknowledging that? Are you sure?
Why would you go bring a right wing back in?
Because they stink, and you could get a serviceable MLS player for nothing. I don't know if I'd read that much into it.
If I'm not winning anything, why do I need to go get another right wing back on my team?
Have you considered that pace is cool?
Yeah, that's why
we just watched the Olympics, bro.
That's why I signed Giovanni Jesus and have Paul Arriola and Kamungo on my team. All these other players who are supposed to be wingbacks for my side. I think that's fair. Now, in saying one thing, for Dallas, their biggest move is Petar Musa, and he has come pretty good pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And in theorems, he should get better next year. And, like, that's their big signing, and that's their big move. But the DNA of this team is weird. The midfield.
Yeah.
Jesus has had a really tough year.
Yeah.
Leggett has had a really tough time in Dallas across the board. Paxton's sadly probably you can't rely on him at least.
You just straight up can't.
And they haven't improved at center back. And like that's the big one that they need to give their team an opportunity. If I ask you right now, August 15th, at the start of the 2025 season, is Martin Poss on the FC Dallas roster?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
So that's going to be another big loss that they have to replace.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, there's enough interest abroad. And again, I know that when he was signed, it was coming here was what he wanted to do, but also that, like, hey, so one day go back to Europe. So again, we'll see. But yeah, like to your point, like with Musa, like, again, maybe I just need to challenge my own perceptions of what I keep on assuming that a lot of this talent fits. Like Musa, Ferreira, and Velasco, who is still working back from injury. Like, those 3 players should make a lot of sense, like you said, but, like, the defensive unit is pretty disastrous. Mendy needs a bodyguard next to him. Do they have that on this roster? So, like, how many new starters do they need between, the summer window and the winter window? And they brought in none. Like, Ruan, at best, is a stopgap because, as you say, his contract's up at the end of the season. And in what they hope is that he's not relied on to be the starter moving forward. It's Giovanni Jesus, again, it's the U22 initiative. Or if you play a wingback, you put, Paul Arriola or Kamungo there, right? Like, so how many new starters do they need? And they didn't really get any. So that's Dallas for me. I'm ready to go back to the positives after all these negatives. I'm going to go with LAFC. They didn't do much.
I can't do one?
Sorry, did I just go back? Well, I'm going to talk about LAFC. Screw you. I'm going to go with LAFC.
Say LAFC is my winner.
Oh, were you?
Oh,
that's convenient. Oh, that's convenient. Yeah, I'm sure. It was my idea. Let the newspaper show this was my idea. LAFC.
Classic print media guy.
Olivier Giroud and Louis O'Brien, 2 really good signings, particularly Giroud. Like the combination of his talent, current ability, what he'll be for the next 18 to 30 months, however long he's still here, and what this team needed was an Olivier Giroud size hole. And getting Louis O'Brien on loan, I think, is really, really strong signing. I just love what they did. They didn't have to do much, and they knocked it out of the park.
We have a question in the chat, and it's one that I think I've thought about a bunch as well. for this LAFC team, they have almost never maxed their DP U22 spots in their time in MLS. What do you make of sort of like this, the way they set their roster and their decision making?
Again, Antoine Griezmann, they're waiting for with that DP spot, so it's not like they're gonna go sign somebody else. Yeah, I mean, you could look at U22s, but man, they had to loan Tomas Angel to the USL Championship to Phoenix because they don't have enough minutes for him.
Yeah.
We were talking about, look, they brought in Lewis O'Brien. They have 5 starting caliber players for 3 spots in central midfield. So, like, yeah, they could do more, but like Stipe Buke, they spent $5 million on him. Didn't really have much playing time. Like, he clearly wasn't the right signing. And like, just sign another highly rated player. Like, part of the way that you get these $5 million players, U22s, is like, hey, you can come develop here. They can't promise that to a lot of these players.
Yeah.
Because the first team is so strong.
It was, shout out to Eric Johnson, the one asking the question. I think what you said completely makes sense. And then the added part is it has worked for them in like, if we have the spot open, we have the optionality later on to figure out, does Gareth Bale want to go golfing this year? Does Giroud want to go? Like, and the Griezmann one is very clear and obvious, makes sense, and not just because it's VAR and Antoine Griezmann in that moment. But then the flip side with them is they have players who are playing at DP U22 levels that aren't on those roster designations.
Yeah.
That's the only reason you can do this. Like, if you need guys to outperform their roster spots for you to be allowed to build a competitive roster in this way, they have that. Whether it's like a Tim Tillman or someone like that, or any of the center backs, or Ryan Hollingshead, or any of these other pieces that they've had, where it's like that player is playing at this level and Bouanga's so good that we can sort of save these spots, because then you get a Giroud on a free and you don't have to pay the transfer fee because you've waited and you're patient and all of that. And obviously LAFC are in a really strong spot right now. As you mentioned, like, I think Lewis O'Brien might be the most underrated move of this window. In like, he could be a 1A guy for this team going to an MLS Cup final. And it happened on the day and it got mentioned and moved on, but like, he was legit for DC. And this team is even better for him to play inside of.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like, this team got better this summer. The top of the league is really strong between, again, I think it's a clear top tier of them, Columbus and Miami. And like, again, Real Salt Lake, LA Galaxy, those are really strong too. FC Cincinnati, like, that would be a slight 1B for me. Like, that top 6 is really, really strong. And then beyond that, it's, your Charlottes, your New Yorks, I'm sure the Colorados. Like, the top of the league, there was a bit of an arms race this summer. Wouldn't call it flat out big time arms race, but like, all these teams, most of these teams got better, if not all of these teams.
Yeah. Do you have any other huge winners or losers that you want to throw in there?
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I have one of each. I'll start with one more winner before we go to a loser. I'm gonna say Minnesota United.
Interesting. I was going to ask you where you fell on this.
I wouldn't. So I can't call it a big winner yet because we just don't know. Like, we don't know about Calvin Yeboah and we don't know about Joaquin Pereira. But like, they brought in potentially 6 new starters. Like, this was what they used as like a primary transfer window. They've again, Yeboah, Jefferson Diaz, Mateus Komet, Joaquin Pereira, Anthony Markanich. And they moved on. Like, they continued evolving this roster from when Khalid El Ahmad and it took over in the winter, and then Eric Ramsey came in March. So they had a lot of work to do to transition out of the Adrian Heath era. And they've been solid this year. Again, they're above. If they make the playoffs, that's an incredibly positive year of what was supposed to be a transition year, of what is a transition year. If Kelvin Yeboah and Joaquin Pereira hit, that's the foundation moving forward. They have a lot of talented players. In fact, they have a lot of versatile players. They have a lot of options. They still need more. I think over the winter, they're going to try to bring in more defenders. If I had to assume, probably like defensive spine type. But if the attack kind of floats around with Robin Lode and Yeboah and Joaquin Pereira and Bongi and Jong Sang-bin and just any combination of that, Daniel Osei, any combination of that, like, that's a solid team. And going into the season, I thought they were going to be a bad team, and I thought that was okay because it was a transition year. So, again, this, I think, has to do more with expectations than, oh my God, like, now they're going to be fighting to get out of the wild card game or whatever we're calling it, the playing game. I don't even know, too many sports, too many of these designations for the playoffs. But if they're not quite there, but I think they could be. Again, if Pereira and Yeboah do hit, it's a great window. If not, I still think it's a pretty good window. Like, even if those two aren't long-term A+ solutions.
Especially if they're not on crazy numbers. Because
Yeah,
if they're not,
yeah, that's good. That's a good
if and we don't know the exact numbers yet because of the way MLS works, so we don't know the salary. But like, if they are not, you could also then open up space to then go get other TPs or
Yep.
fill those roster spots in other ways. I agree with you that if I'm Minnesota, I'm happy with the window I have. There's a decent chance that they've added 4 starters, right? And especially both the wingback / fullback spots, which have been a bit of an issue for them over the last few years. Like, they may have solved those. Markinich, low key, has been a solid MLS player. That's like not a bad pickup. And that is, to me, someone who's paying attention. So, yes, they are in South America and Europe trying to find DPs, but also noticing like a potential MLS starter is out with his team. Can we go pull that player in and see what we can get there and sort of play it out the rest of the year? I like moves like that. And Pookie's up at the end of the year. And with that up, like, they only technically have, well, they have no true DPs left on the roster outside of the new ads that this front office and coaching staff have gotten to select themselves. And so now it's their project and it's on them, but that's all they could ask for at this point going forward. So I don't mind putting Minnesota in the winner column, but as you said, not at the top and not as one of the big winners. Would you put Orlando in the winner column?
I mean, I think I don't think it was a negative one. Like, I feel a little weird talking about them as big winner. Like, again, the Duncan McGuire new contract, it's huge.
Yes,
that's really good. That's been
really where it would stand, right?
Yeah, because like they're bringing in a U22 initiative midfielder, and like again, as we were talking about with Cincy, they're not expecting him to come in and start every game or even start most of the games or even start maybe any of the games. Who knows? Like, this is a strong midfield group. So like I don't even think that I would give them a ruling. Like, it's solid. They didn't have a lot of freedom. They were able to bring in the U22 initiative player and keep Duncan McGuire, which again, that saga's been ongoing since the winter, and I'm sure the front office and Duncan McGuire's camp are just very happy that it's over. No, you know what? I don't think I can say for certain that both sides are very, very glad that they got to this kumbaya moment and can put their arms around each other and stop countering with proposals and texts and calls and meetings and all that. So it's all over, and that's one thing less to worry about.
Tom doesn't have to flight track another flight to England out of Orlando as well. But the news there is Duncan McGuire's agreed to a new contract through 2027 with an option for 2028.
Tam deal.
So he has decided that he wants to be there long term. They have compensated him in a way that makes him happy. This is probably what makes the team best. And then if a sale comes back into a conversation, Orlando has some strength in all of this to be able to negotiate the deal they would like. I have no idea where this leaves Luis Muriel. Like, what is the future there? He is now 4th or 3rd on the depth chart. He's their DP center forward. But he was going to be there. He was going to be there on August 16th no matter what. So having Duncan McGuire in the fold and knowing the future there makes you better off. You probably lose a little negotiating ground if you are trying to sell him going forward, but you probably lost that by just not playing him as well. They're one of the odd ones. Philadelphia is one of the odd ones. Jose Martinez.
Odd's a good way to put it.
Yeah, Jose Martinez leaving, and like you look at Jim Curtin's quote, which I believe
Town Hall.
Who is it? What?
It was at a town
Someone
hall.
tweeted it at us.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I was trying to remember who it was.
Jose Nunez. Yeah. Jose Nunez.
Jose Nunez did that. Yeah, thank you. It was like 18 names
My
going
bad.
through my head. But Jim Curtin basically was like, these players, he talked about, I think he was talking about Julian Carranza and Jose Martinez together, of like, this club did a lot for them. They did a ton for this club. They'll always be a part of this club, but like, this is just the reality. He's 30. He has taken a half step back over the course of the year. I think being with Venezuela and the troubles that Philadelphia had taken a bit of a toll on him. So I'm not sure that that's who the player he still is or will be going forward. But they're going to make over $1 million total on him. That number is probably not going up at his age as he goes forward. So if you were going to sell him, now's the chance. You could convince me that you shouldn't have sold at all and just remain good with him in the team. But this is a position that Philly has successfully found new players at over and over again.
Yeah, and I think that's the point. It wasn't about what was the profit you turned on Jose Martinez. I think it was about whether to keeping him or not. And again, I don't know where the player stands on this. Like, I don't know if he was necessarily pushing for it or not. I know that he was in the past. Like, I thought he was going to leave a year and a half ago. it seemed like he was ready to go. I want to go to Europe or whatever, and Besiktas were in for him. And then he turned around and said, you know what, actually, I want to stay. Like, let's talk about a new contract. And then he signed a new contract. So I thought he was going to stay for a while. And that hasn't happened. Again, the deal's not done with Corinthians, but like, as you said, Jim Cronin's talking about it. It's trending that way, to say the least. Like, I just think that the personal terms need to still be set. Last I checked in on it yesterday.
We have two from the chat, which I think are fair ones to ask for. Carl von Hassel says, was New England a winner or a loser? Losing DeJuan Jones, not getting another striker seems like a loss. Veroni's inconsistent. Bobby Wood's legs aren't getting younger.
What was the other one from the chat? What was the other team?
Please talk about RSL, was all it said. Shout out.
That's fair. I think so. I think that we should hit New England RSL, and because my next one was going to be Atlanta United in loser. Yeah. So you tell me which one of those three you want to go to.
Let's start with Atlanta.
Yeah. Disappointing. Just straight up disappointing. I really like the Alexei Moranichuk signing, but not bringing in another DP. The patience is starting to wear thin in this group. Last summer would look really, really strong. Those there's three key signings: Muyumba, Lobojanice, and John De Silva. Particularly Silva have not quite been the same this year. Muyumba hasn't been so good. I think Lobojanice has been the best out of the three. So what we were looking at as the foundation of like, all right, cool, now they just need to add their DPs. The foundation is a little bit rockier than we thought it was, and the DPs didn't go. One DP came, and not a second. They can still add two in the winter, and that's kind of the silver lining, I'll say, to this. I think they deserve to be criticized. I know that they were trying like hell to get a DP attacker in before the window closed, and they didn't. They probably got to a point where, we're not just going to sign anybody, and we'll take our lumps right now. And again, they deserve to be taking lumps right now, but they can add two DPs in the winter, and I think you give them a leash till then. You give them, maybe not even necessarily benefit of the doubt, but like you have that hope on the horizon of we can bring in DP9 and a DP whatever else we want to do, and trust Garth Lagerwey to do that and hire a head coach and see what happens next. But patience is dangerously thin, I think, in Atlanta right now. And I understand that this summer isn't quite what everybody hoped for. And right now, the season's over. You punted on the season. This team is doing nothing. They're going nowhere. Cool, maybe you make it into ninth place. Maybe you win the play-in game. Great, who cares? Raise a banner, right? Hell, even last year, like Garth Lagerwey had like a good quote. I was trying to be like, hey man, like this was a better season than I thought you were gonna have. It was really good, and he was like, one, I don't think we were very good, and two, like we're not having a trophy parade because we made the playoffs. Like that's not the expectations here. So by that standard, like this season's over, and I think Atlanta United fans have a right to be upset, but I think this will be quickly forgotten if it's March and the team looks awesome because they signed two more DPs.
All right, let's talk New England. Do they fall in one of these two camps, or are they just neutral?
I would say winner. They definitely needed to do something. They needed to do more than a little bit of something. I like the Tim Parker for Henry Kessler swap and just kind of the way that changed, just fresh place and getting a player who's has less future money. He's only guaranteed for the rest of the season. Luca Langoni getting that done as a U22 initiative rather than a DP, I think is really, really strong. We talked about it when that deal was coming through, that if you have ownership that will give you the budget to be like, hey, go sign the top of the line U22 initiatives, spending $7 million gives you a lot better on a 22-year-old, gives you a much higher probability of instant success and long-term success than signing an 18-year-old for $2 million or whatever it is, right? Like, so the pedigree, Jesus Christ, the pedigree is significantly higher for this profile, and I like that. They really needed a central midfielder. Yusuf, I don't know a ton about him. I've talked to a few people who rate him very highly. They needed another option in the midfield. And if the midfield trio is Yusuf, Polster, and Carlos Hill, that's among the strongest in the league if this player does fit and the profile that has been described to me is exactly what he is in MLS. So, yeah, I'm going to say I would call them a winner.
I think that's fair. I want to see how Carlos Hill plays and what he says to call them a winner over the next few weeks. Like,
it's fair.
He was down about the DeJuan Jones move, but if he is playing like happy and full energy and believes in the group that's on the field and he's motivated and all of that, I'm going to be sold on it. If not, I'm like, the Langoni move is a fantastic move, and the rest of it, yeah.
No, I'm saying he should be at midfield.
Phoenix. Yeah. The rest of it I'm sitting on, and whether or not I give that thumbs up comes there or not. Last one here is RSL, which I think is a fair question. Like, we were so excited about the Gonçalves move, followed up by my heartbreaking Andres Gomez move. Are they the same? Are they better? Like, where do you fall for them?
That's a really great question on it. Like, I don't think that they're worse. And I'll start there. So I think that's a win to be able to get the fee that they did for Andres Gomez and understand just the reality of we can't keep him right now. This is the bid that's coming. It's just, we have to deal with this, whether we're perfectly happy or not. So Gonçalves coming in, again, we really like that. And then between Marzik, Benji Michel, and Lachlan Brook, I think between one of those three, or like Matty Crooks if you want to put Gonçalves on the wing, I think like between one of those four, like look, you're not getting Andres Gomez production. You're not getting Andres Gomez profile. Benji Michel has the same kind of or similar kind of dynamic athleticism and can add goals from the wing the same way that like they're all different profiles. If by collective the four of them can just be close enough, and you add Gonçalves, that's supposed to bring it up. Like I think this is a win. I really do. Though again, like I really wish we could have seen a front four of Gonçalves, Diego Luna, Andres Gomez, and Chicho Arango.
Yeah. Yeah, I think to say they're not worse is fair, and to say not worse means they're competitive for winning the Western Conference, but not one of the heavy favorites, and would still be a little surprised. That would be the case with them having made $13 million, with the potential for it to go up to 15, right? With Barajas combined.
Yeah, no, 15 million guaranteed, up to 17, because Barajas was 4 and Gomez was 11.
Oh, I thought it was 9 plus 2. With Gomez.
No, 11 plus 2.
Ah, yeah. So if you're a club, that's not a bad place to be. And we have said it on this show, like they are still under some newer ownership who is still finding, I think, the identity of like, where does this club sit in the MLS hierarchy? How do they maintain success and how do they push it forward? To have a transfer, a little pocket of kitty thing like that, not a bad life to be living. And to remain as a potential home playoff team throughout that would be really, really strong. The Javane Brown move was a good under the radar move as well for them to bring in a legitimate MLS starter, whether it's at center back or at fullback as well. And so going forward, I think this is an RSL team that can feel pretty strong. They are one of those groups you look at where the guys they want are under contract and the guys you don't kind of aren't. Most of them have options coming up or are done, and so you can open up some space as well. They'll have an open DP spot at the end of this season to use because Andres Gomez is coming off of one of them.
No, sorry, but like technically, but they're going to be a team that does 2-4-2.
Oh, fair. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Good point.
Yeah.
All right. Any other MLS specific stuff you need to get in?
I have one question for you. Do you need me to lay out and you could just tell me all your personal feelings when you got the notification? Because I know you have my tweet notifications on, of course. When you got the notification of me breaking the news that Mathieu Choinière is on his way to Grasshopper Club Zurich.
I'm sorry. For anyone listening to the podcast, your audio did not go out. I muted myself. For anyone watching, you got to see my reaction fully.
He literally texted me that too, to be fair.
Yeah, I don't really know how to edit audio in that way, so it was easier for me to just do it.
Bleep you was a very strong from his deep emotions. Bleep you.
Just so you know, besides Mr. and Mrs. Choinière, I'm just guessing that. I'm the biggest Mathieu Choinière fan in the world.
Next to Don Garber.
What?
Next to Don Garber, commissioner selection.
I will not be watching a Swiss League game. Like, that won't happen. I'm also going to be a little annoyed when this all ends, which is him clearly on Chicago, right?
No.
That's the move. You go to Switzerland, then you come back.
Grasshopper is co-owned by LAFC.
Are they?
Yeah. This winter.
Interesting. Okay. I could be sold a little bit. Yeah, now we got the Windhorse fingers going up. That's good, Tom. Okay, I could be sold a little bit on that one. I would have loved to see him get the keys to the car for a team like a Nashville. Honestly, Chicago probably should have been in that conversation.
Good point, man.
Yeah. I don't know what an Austin's doing. That's another one where you're like, oh, this guy could fit in pretty well and fit a system. Obviously, you have to assume Columbus tried because Nancy is a fan and has been in the past. And this is where we stand, and this is where we're at now. So yeah, I hate you for that one. Andres Gomez out as well. The whole thing sucks. Let's finish a little bit positive here, and let's go Mauricio Pochettino, baby.
Yeah.
The U.S. has a new manager. It is the greatest manager in the history of the sport. Number one, USA. Get hyped, Tom.
Yeah, this is awesome. Like, of realistic
That is
candidates.
exactly what you want to hear. This is awesome.
Of realistic candidates, like, you can't do much better than this. It's really great. I was worried that he might hold out to see if England would be in for him or not. I was worried that, hey, like, I can't give you a yes now. So really well done by the United States to get this done, to get this over the line. Paul Tenorio said, when he broke the news that he was going to be the top candidate, it was a top candidate. And, like, again, for Paul to put that out, like, that, it wasn't just like that he was on a short list and they were thinking about it. Like, that meant that they were trying to sign him, that they were trying to get him done. And Paul's reporting said that, like, Mikey Veras is probably going to be the interim head coach for the September window. ESPN is saying that Pochettino might be done in time to take charge. Like, I think that's another important part too. Like, I don't need to see another interim manager in charge of the United States men's national team for multiple cycles. I'm good on interim managers for a long time. So hopefully they can get this done. There are still some things to do. He's still getting paid by Chelsea, so that needs to be changed. They need not be changed. They need to figure out a solution there of what a buyout needs to be. Again, I really like this. I think that he's gonna have the personality for it. I'm very curious to see what his tactics are going to be with this group. But again, Jurgen Klopp was never realistic. That would have been my top choice overall. I think Pochettino would have been number 2.
We did the show after Greg got let go a month ago, a little bit over a month ago on this show. And in the list of names, he was probably our favorite between the two of us. And so, as you said, to ID it and then get it done, that's as good as you're going to do at this point. He should have been hired a year ago. You can't go back and fix that. That's the reality. You can't go back and fix that. So from this moment on, how can you operate as well as possible? This is what you do. You get him in the door, as you said, ASAP. Get him working. Allow him to get around the players, to start to implement some of the things he's wanted to do, to start to assess from the inside and say, like, here's what's going well, here's what's not, here's what needs to be adjusted. The positives for me with him, even though he doesn't have international experience, is basically managing Tottenham as being an international manager of like, well, you can't spend any money and you can't bring in any players. So he was able to do the best with what he did, and he's the one who gave Harry Kane his opportunity. Yeah. This was a guy they had loaned out and was like a non-existent part of the club, and every other manager is like, I need more money, I need more money. And he generated him, Danny Rose, Kyle Walker. He pushed them all to ending up being in England international, then one of the greatest players in the club's history and the country's history as well. So he's been in situations like that, and we've seen him be tactically flexible with the options he has. And I think that's key for being a national team coach. He is a Bielsa-lite, but also Bielsa light. He is not the full Jorge Sampaoli of like, I showed up training with no shirt and ran through the wall to get here. Like, everyone be there with me. But there is a little bit of that like wacky professor stuff with him, which I think is fun because you're hosting the World Cup. You don't have competitive games over the next 2 years. The Copa America was your chance. Like, how can you challenge players? How can you push them, but also be able to create a culture that they want to be around and set this team up for its best opportunity? And to grow the sport in this region and this country, your best chance is to be good at the 2026 World Cup. This was your first step to getting there, and this was the best case scenario to do it. And so I think all of that's exciting. And as you said, just the sigh of relief of like it being done. Like, we don't have to wonder. We don't have to talk about it. We don't have to watch an interim. Nashville doesn't have to pull out another resume. They're like, oh, interim? Mikey Varas? Let's check him out. Let's see what's going on here. We don't have to do that again. We have a name. We have a guy. We have a direction. And I think he's going to be an interesting spokesperson because he's on his own. Like, U.S. soccer has its issues, and I think there's some negativity around there, and there's some frustrations. Pochettino is going to come in and sort of be in his own space like Emma Hayes has. Yeah. And like, he's going to speak for himself, and that's going to be a new voice to have, I think, talking about this program and these players and this team and the sport in this area, bilingual as well. So it adds a little bit of the ability to help maybe grow the umbrella of the fan base of this team. There's a lot of checks. There's a lot of boxes that are checked off by this signing, and I think it's fair for a lot of people to be really excited. To expect him to change the entire landscape of the sport in this country, and to expect him to turn them into 1998 Brazil, probably a little bit of an overreaction. But I guess we'll get there as we go through some of these friendlies.
Yeah, again, I'm really excited, and let's see if he can take a lot of, like, this is a attractive job with the player pool in that there's a lot of talented players, a lot of talented young players. It's a lot of potential right now. Can he turn potential into current talent, into current production, into current performance over the next 2 years? He's got the best chance of anybody. I was on BBC radio this morning, and like one of their questions was like
the BBC.
One of their questions were like, he lost the Champions League final. Like, he didn't win the Premier League with Tottenham. Like, is there any worry about that? And I was like,
culture.
But I was like, it was like, hey, like if you're trying to win, and I was like, well, Jurgen Klopp isn't taking the job, Pep Guardiola's not taking the job, Carlo Ancelotti, Zidane's not taking the job. Like, those are the people who win the Champions League. Those are the people who win the Premier League. Like the people who consistently win those trophies and win those tournaments, they weren't available to the United States. This is like, yeah, he lost the Champions League final. I'm good with it. He got there. Like, that Spurs team, are you kidding me? I think that they would take that right now too, as much as they love Big Ange. But yeah, I was like, yeah, no, that doesn't bother me at all. Can he win? Can he win a Nations League? Can he win a Nations League?
Can he win the big one? Can he get the U.S. finally over the line to winning a World Cup? Is that the question? Because if we're there, then like I think we would all take that reality of, we just can't break through and finally win the World Cup.
Dude, if they win a knockout round game, it'll be awesome.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
we're nowhere near that reality. That is a wild thing. We've got a comment here in the chat that says, Poch in for 26, then on to his next job, and then Klopp full-time post-World Cup after his extended vacation from coaching. Get Tim Howard on the plane. It never ends. The opportunity never goes away. I think it's fair for fans to be very excited today. I also think if you're a fan, like, you should enjoy moments like this. It is not a fix-all. It is not perfect. I will be interested to see, especially after, as the stories come out, how he affects some of these players individually, of like, how does he affect Weston McKennie's career? What is he saying to him as one-on-one? And part of being a national team manager is going and talking to the teams about those players. You're trying to do that from a management level of like trying to bring those players into camp more often and have good communication about injuries and stuff. But like when Mauricio Pochettino shows up to a club and is like, oh, we actually think Luca De La Torre is really, really good, and for these reasons, are there other people now listening saying like, should we give him a shot? Or like, is that a move we should make? Or does that player deserve more minutes and we're actually missing this? He brings a level of gravitas there that I don't think existed. Those are small little things, but like if he spurs 2 or 3 players' careers on in a way that would have been different without him, those could be the 2 or 3 starters for the national team. Those players could have Champions League careers and all of that going forward. And it will be interesting to see which of the players now are sort of the ones he leans on, because Greg had really solidified the group he believed in, and there was not a lot of movement in and out the lineups, and now it's a new manager. Clean slate. Obviously, Pulis is going to be a main part of it, but I don't know that anyone else has a guaranteed spot, and I think that's pretty key and pretty necessary for the team at this point. Any final thoughts?
No, I'm just excited, and I hope that he's in place for September friendly so we get to see it in action.
Who are they playing? They're playing here.
Canada. The first game is Jesse Marsh in Canada.
And is it it's in New Jersey, right?
I hope so. That's where all the birthplace of American soccer, global football, the absolute hotbed. Like,
Tom just assumes all U.S. soccer events are happening in New Jersey. Me bringing it up, you were like, "Yeah, I didn't even realize," and I don't.
No, it's in Kansas City. Never mind. Who cares? We don't need it. We don't need them in place. Like, what are we gonna learn in Kansas City? Nothing. Who cares?
Fake game. Mauricio Pochettino has arrived. The transfer window has closed, which means Tom is going to take a nap for the next 18 hours before he breaks the next story of a DP for San Diego next year, right out the gate. Shout out Tyler Heap for getting that job on the side as well. Thank you to all of you for watching and listening. Subscribe wherever you get your stuff, and we'll talk to you again very, very soon.